Today's Goten challenge is set downs. I'm going to take half-inch square and I'm going to mark at 3 inches back. I'm going to mark that with a sharp chisel, because that'll be a cut-off position. And then I want to do a dull mark at 1 inch, and about 1 inch again, and then 1 inch again. So dull mark at 1 inch, dull mark at 2 inch. Okay. What I want to do with this is basically turn it into a C form. So I'll go in, isolate inwards, and isolate inwards, and create that. Okay. And I would like this to be 2 inches long and a 1/4 inch thick and a 1/2 inch wide. So we should go from being 3 inches long to 4 inches long, inch either side. In theory.
Can you write those numbers down?
So it will be 1 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch. Okay? I'm going to go for fairly crisp corners. So as I'm jumping over to this anvil, it's got a little bit sharper corners on it. See how it goes. You will especially find this entertaining if you have a really, really wide anvil, as I do here, because there is no point where I can reach 2 inches across here. Okay? If I had one with a nice combed rear end, like Jessica's friend Wilbur here, I could come out here, dress it out quite nicely without a problem. But I'm going to have a whirl at this. So, dull mark, dull mark. I don't put in a chisel mark here because if I do, that chisel mark will transfer all the way through my set down and can cause a fissure. So I'm running a, that's about an 1/8 inch radius edge dull chisel. Probably most of you have one of these in your toolkit accidentally. And then on this one I'm going to put a harsh chisel cut and mark that all the way around. Fairly well. So the fun of this one for me is being able to isolate this and isolate this and then stretch this. So the way I like to do it, it's actually how I do my bolt jaw tongs, same principle. The way I like to do it is near side, far side set downs. So this is my rectangle bar. I'll do far side set down here at an angle back to this mark, and then a near side set down here back to this mark, which leaves me a hump in the middle. If you're really, really lucky, that distance from here to here, which for me is not, is less than how far you want to stretch it. That's 2 1/4 inch. That side is a shade over 2 inch. But what you can do is actually bridge over that gap if you want to get a nice flat shoulder in there. You can also use a hardy tool, so something like this. If you have something narrow enough that you can come in, cut near side, far side. Notice that this has a pair of 2 different radii on it. If you still don't have something the right width, something like that might be better, drop in. And if you don't have any of those things, but you have a vise, you could always stick a piece of square stop up in the vise, so 1 inch square, something like that. If not, you're just going to have to get really creative like I'm going to. going to try and keep this fairly crisp and vertical. There's my mark. And I'll lower down straight away. Good. Not quite reached my other mark yet. So if you look, it's crept back to here. The more I elongate it, the easier it makes my life. So I'm going to elongate that just a fraction more. Okay. It's almost a quarter. And then near side, I'm just going to put a light mark for my next one. Okay. Keeping it nice and stable against my leg, all that. I'm going to have some fun cross-peening this. So I'm actually going to try and do some stretching in that midriff of the staple with the cross-peen, which is never my favorite thing to do. I always prefer to put my set downs down because it's easier to really bugger them up if they're up this way. When you're laying in your isolation of the set down, make sure it is hot, make sure you strike deep and penetrating. Just works better. Also, you might want to bump up your hammer weight by a pound or two, just for the set down. Because that power, it's so stable, the push is so heavy, you get better set downs that way. Flat notch. So there's that lovely little WM form that I was expecting. I now have to try and work out how to stretch the material in the middle without damaging my isolated bar stock. So the first thing I'm going to do is drop that width. Because that width is length. It's like one of those really special moments when I say things like that. Width is length. A little bit of clean up, near side, far side. And in well. Fun thing you can also do with this is you can bend the material so that you have the flat of the anvil here, you have your little nub hanging over the edge, and then bend it up like this so that your other set down is out of the way, and that way you can maybe access a little bit of material there, near side and far side, but you've always got to be careful of these corners where those are. Depends on what you are more likely to mess up, the hammer blow from above or the hammer blow when it's turned this way, striking those corners. I tell you what, whenever you look at those little corners poking up at you and you go, I really don't want to hit those, the next thing that happens is you strike them. So I'm going to do a little bit of a bend and see if I can get some of that meat out. Coming in fairly heavy with the heel of the hammer. Now go this way, basically reverse, nose of the hammer. Oh, I thought about it. Thought about that corner and there we go, I popped it. So, starting to cut in quite nicely. Suppose about now I'm going to just start cleaning everything up, bringing it in true. I suppose I should put some marks on my anvil. So 4 inches overall length, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 2 in the middle. Okay. That's supposed to be a 4. So bring in the sides. I'm going to work with those set downs down as I keep thinking about them. Maybe I'll be really silly and grab a set hammer at some point. Set hammer can just as easily be a bit of square bar. Pretty close. Yeah, a little bit of dress out, that's going to come in pretty well. One more time. This really teaches you a lot of dynamic control of your hammer, understanding what part of the face you're working on. I don't always just hit with a dead center. Maybe I'll switch out to a corner, I'll run back to a back rail, front rail, side, just depending on how I want to get that energy in there, whether I want to keep an edge protected as I'm working in on a set or something like that. So that it doesn't have to be a two-dimensional thing. There's far more to that hammer face than just a big flat face. Also understanding what's going on the underside of your material. Are you bashing in the corners? Are you pulling back on your sets, making sure that your set downs are being held true? I would say it's pretty well on it. May have almost gone over the top. So, pretty good. Light heat, straighten it all up. If you do stretch it out too far, you could do something really hateful for yourself and upset it. Then you can combine last week's challenge with this week's. That'd be really hard. Kind of fun.
You would use the shrinking method in the vise.
That would be a good one, yeah. Put a little, make it into like the hungry caterpillar and then. Yep, I like that. Or you could just jump it back like that. Oh, that was the set hammer. I picked up the wrong one. Well, obviously, it was a sign. At this point, I'm essentially using the set hammer as a flatter to smooth out that bottom plane, because it's not a flatter and a set hammer the same thing on a different scale. Yeah, I can live with that. It's a fun little exercise.
You gonna cut it off?
You want me to? Oh, fine.
You gotta cut it off, and then you gotta square up that cut off so that it's.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine. I will This is that moment where I wish I had an offset hot cut.
But you have to do it all in 4 minutes.
I've got 4 minutes to get it done.
Yep.
Oh heck. I wonder why you do these things. Start inventing numbers on me.
It's because I care.
Give me neurosis. I'm putting a little bit of an angle to my chisel because it's not an offset chisel, but I do want my cut to be a little bit more asymmetrical.
And that's why you're choosing a chisel over a hot cut?
Yeah, that hot cut is really good for doing cut-offs for continued square points, that kind of thing. But for what I'm trying to do here, it's probably not the ideal one. I used to have an offset chisel. I don't know what the heck I'm thinking of. Also a finer geometry chisel, so you know, a real nice true hot cutting chisel would be really good here. I'm just trying to get that set up a little easier for myself, a little cleaner for myself. And try not to hit my hand, considering I nearly crippled myself the other week. I highly recommend to everybody, do not hit your hand at full force whilst drifting using a 3-pound hand hammer and an 18-inch haft. It hurts and makes your hand feel weird for a while. I know I have done it before in my past. I know undoubtedly I'll do it again in the future, but it never feels good. Yeah, that'll wiggle off nicely. So you see, just by putting that little bit of an angle to it, it really has helped how it's cut off. It's a lot flatter. Move that out of the way. I could have theoretically done it by putting it at a low angle on the hot cut. There's different ways of skinning the same cat. Give it a little bit of file work to take the tip burr off, and then I will upset it back in, which is going to be hilarious. And I hate you a little bit right now.
Now don't cheat and just file it all the way flat.
So I've just taken the little tit off the end.
So you want to tell them why you're putting it on the corner like that?
Huh?
Well, rather than just holding it and hitting it end on, because you would maybe buckle the inside, right?
Yeah. And I just enough length there.
Also, you crispened up the inside corner by doing that.
Yep. Well, that was a little fun thing. Wire brush. and I've probably got one end slightly shorter than the other or something along those lines, but give or take. Yeah, I could probably upset that in an eighth of an inch or so to get it truly on point, but
It's okay, I'll pass. I'll let you pass this
that will
time.
do. So there's a fun little object to try. Alright, you're going to drop down.
Yeah.
If you really want to have some fun, there's all kinds of really interesting castellations you could do. So you can cancellate it like this, right? Or you can offset it. Let me draw this. That may or may not make sense. Hope you all got the information on this one. I just wiped it up. So if you're doing cancellations that way, you can also do cancellation. I'll come to here, drop down there, right? Go that way. Which could be a really entertaining one to do also. Alright? So it's basically you could double it up back to back, so you have it going one plane, flip, do the other plane. Anyway, a little bit of entertainment, give it a whirl, see if you can really learn to articulate that hammer a little bit, figure out what's going on the underside. This is really what this is about, understanding what's going on underneath whilst you're working the top. You always need to remember that the downside is being as effective as the upside. Right. Good luck, happy goating challenge.